Let's look again at Romans 5, 13 and 14. We saw that 12 through 14 teaches us that we're doubly lost. We're lost by nature and by nurture. We're lost in position and we're lost in practice. We're lost because of who we are and because of our actions. So, in light of that, let's just see something that's kind of tucked in here about the law, because it may have been confusing when we read it. By way of explanation, verse 13, for sin indeed was in the world before the law was given. So remember that Adam, in his creation, you move forward from that, and you walk into Noah, and then you walk, of course, into the patriarchs, Abraham, and you have Isaac and Jacob and Joseph. But we don't get to the law until we get to the deliverance of the people from Exodus, and that's around 1500 BC. So between Adam and Moses, you have all these years without law. So the point that the author is making, that Paul's making here, is to say that, look, yeah, there was sin. I mean, Abraham sinned, Isaac sinned, Jacob sinned, Joseph sinned, of course. There was sin in the world prior to the law. For sin indeed was in the world before the law was given, but sin is not counted where there is no law. That is, that the role of the law was to give a standard that could account for blessing and cursing, whether you measured up to that standard or not. The consequences of sin still remained. Death still reigned, verse 14 says, yet death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those whose sinning was not like the transgression of Adam, who was a type of the one who was to come. Death reigned, people sinned, and as a result they died. But the law was given as a gracious standard by which people could measure whether they were doing right or whether they were doing wrong, right? So think about a child. You tell that child, or let's say you don't tell that child, that jumping on the couch is wrong. And they jump on the couch. Should they jump on the couch? No. But you never lay down the standard. Laying down the standard gives them a place holder, if you will, by which they can measure right and wrong, by which they can be held accountable. That was the role of the law. Paul says it differently in Galatians 3. He describes the law as a kind of schoolmaster that brought me to Christ, he says. He says things like, I wouldn't know what was wrong if it wasn't for the law. So therefore you'll see in Romans 7, the law was what made a person aware of their unrighteousness. And that's an important point. So that the law sets a standard. Now what happens, right, is that standard gets upended in the gospel, not because the law was bad, but because it was inadequate. It was adequate to say what was wrong, but it wasn't adequate to tell you how to make it all right. And that is what Christ does. Christ now gives the law within, according to the prophets. The law now is written on our hearts. We have the Spirit within us, and the Spirit within us gives us a new heart. And now our spirit bears witness with His Spirit that we're His, and we're identified with Him, so that we can now have this internal notion of that which pleases the Lord through the work of the Spirit. So there's more about that to come as well, especially when we get into chapter 8. But for now, I just wanted to offer you an explanation of that language of what does it mean when it says that there was not counted sin where there's no law. It doesn't mean there wasn't sin. It means that it didn't have a reckoning because there was no standard, even while sin remained. May the Lord bless you today, and may you be encouraged as you meditate upon His Word throughout the day.